Viewers, very good evening to all of you. You have been seeing the Shiv Sena imploding around you. There are going to be, of course, repercussions of this nationally. The landscape, the political landscape in Maharashtra is undergoing dramatic churn. You might have a situation that in the coming months the Shiv Sena might slide into irrelevance, like the Congress. Who will fill the vacuum remains to be seen. Some will say maybe we are being too presumptive, that the Shiv Sena, which is synonymous with the Thackerays, is going to go nowhere. Even if these MLAs decide to carry on with their endeavor, it will rejuvenate itself, perhaps in a different avatar, or maybe it will go back to its Hindutva roots and challenge the Shinde Sena or the BJP afresh. That is always a probability. Some will also say that let's not read too much into this Ayaram Gayaram game that has been going on eternally in different contexts in Indian politics. Don't make this about ideology. Don't make this about some greater cause that Shinde is striving for. They will say that Shinde's cause, his rebellion, his revolt, his coup, call it what you want to, has either been sponsored or he is playing a game which has been dictated to him, and we will see it crystallizing in the days ahead. Viewers, there are many questions, of course. There are many answers, but let's just look back, as we always do in Converse, and ask some basic questions. Let's assume for a few moments that the questions that Mr. Shinde is asking are the right ones. And I want to begin with the first question. As we engage with our guests, with our panel, we have a sublime panel this evening. And the first question, therefore, is the most obvious one. Did Uddhav Thackeray make compromises for becoming the chief minister? His father always talked about shunning any active position, executive position of authority. He said that is a poison chalice. Thackeray should not involve themselves with the obvious compromises you need to make when you're in office. We're above it. Uddhav Thackeray, by his own admission, was coaxed into this job, into the chief ministership, by Sharad Pawar. Did he make, therefore, compromises? Yes, they did sign a common minimum program. And by doing so, did the Shiv Sena progressively become something it is not? Fundamental question. And I want to begin first with Shubhrastha, author and founder of the Churn. Shubhrastha, how do you see this? Mr. Shinde is being called in various circles, especially those that are antagonistic to the BJP or the Modi government, as a puppet, as a cat's paw. But he might have asked a few relevant questions. Do you agree, first of all, with the premise of his question? And then, of course, we would like to hear whether Uddhav Thackeray has ended up making compromises.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for having me on your show. I think you've already summarized the situation in Maharashtra pretty well in your question as well. Look, there are three angles on which we need to focus upon. The first is the fact that Uddhav Thackeray, as a party chief, could not get his house on order and keep his house in order, which is why Eknath Shinde revolted. And Eknath Shinde's revolt is not the revolt of one aggressive individual in the party. It's a collective call of millions of Shiv Sainiks who were toiling on ground, fighting on ground realities, and perhaps trying to deliver to Uddhav Thackeray that what he did as a part of alliance and later on as well, while he was in the service of the people of Maharashtra, did not go down well with the cadre and with people on ground. But I think Uddhav Thackeray did not receive the feedback as they were trying to tell him. And this happens with second generation leadership, which is not as aggressive or as humble as, you know, the first generation is. Uddhav Thackeray is definitely not Bala Saheb. Thackeray is definitely, and his son is definitely not going to be even 10% of what he is or what Bala Saheb is, was. What I'm trying to say is that it takes a certain kind of political capital to work on ground, then rise up the ranks. Perhaps Eknath Shinde carries, that issue within him, and which is why all of this has unfolded in the Shiv Sena. Now, this is the internal dynamics of the party, which of course could not be contained by the leadership at the Sena level. However, in politics, sometimes it's not only about what you do internally with your party and how you strengthen the party internally. In a democracy, especially a parliamentary democracy, sometimes you have to make compromises when you go for allies and when you sit with political combinations. Mathematically, the NCP, the Shiv Sena and the Congress might look good together, but historically they have never been together. Historically, they can never see eye to eye on certain questions. Ideologically, they are poles apart from each other. But maybe because of political compulsions, maybe because there is no reason for being in politics if you're not in power and if you don't, manipulate your way through power. I don't actually blame the Shiv Sena for doing that, but I do blame the Shiv Sena for not keeping its house on order and not listening to what its cadre was saying. Now, to that question, names will be called to Eknath Shinde. Eknath Shinde will call names to Uddhav Thackeray, which he has been doing. Eknath Shinde says he's the real Shiv Sena. Eknath Shinde is being called a puppet. Of course, there is a whole BJP equation at play here. Since BJP is a very aggressive political party, which is not only national today, but has expanded its base beyond the mainstream, has gone to the border states, has gone to areas where it has never had any presence before. It is going to look for an opportunity, and if an opportunity arises, is going to do everything to get in power. So I don't really blame the BJP for playing its game, but because these guys are not able to outsmart the BJP to say that the MLAs are being bought and sold, to say that BJP is using muscle, money and power and all of that is I think foolhardy. I think the whole business of politics is twofold. One is to focus on policy issues, and that can happen only when you are in power. And in order to be in power, you have to make all kinds of compromises. You have to do all kinds of jugglery to beef up the numbers. And I think that is what is happening in Maharashtra. At the end of the day, whosoever has the numbers, whosoever passes the floor test is going to claim the throne of Maharashtra.
Okay, so it'll all come down to numbers. Let's not get twisted up with ethics, morality, etc., and perhaps even ideology. It just comes down to a cold calculation, back of the envelope calculation. Okay, let me bring in Sameer Desai, leader of the Shiv Sena. Yes, you compromised, says Shubhrastha, and you shouldn't be looking for scapegoats. Blame yourself, keep your own house in order, manage your own people. You'd have been okay. Vajpayee did, how much was it, 7 years of that? He managed 8 years, I think, the NDA. Yes, in total 8 years. He managed keeping his house in order. Other coalitions have survived the full term. You had the JMM case with PV Narasimha Rao. He used Sam Dam Dan Bed. You can call it what you want to. The Supreme Court said that it was bribery at play there. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's about numbers. Keep your flock together, manage your own house, stop looking over the fence to blame the BJP, etc., etc. Mr. Desai, you mucked up. You only have yourself to blame.
Rahul, if you recollect me saying yesterday to you that I do not wish to blame or give credit to BJP for the mess that has been created within the Sena by its own men. So that puts to rest that yes, this house, if it is not in order, the blame lies on us. Us in the sense collectively the Shiv Sena. Now Rahul, no one on this earth expects a son to be like his father. But let me again reiterate, Uddhav Sahab is carrying on the legacy, the ideologies, the vision of none other than Hindu Hriday Samrat Balasaheb Thackeray. Now, if it's up to number game, yes, as of now, it's slightly jittery. We are on a slippery wicket. We wouldn't know what exactly is going to happen on the floor of the house. That is for the legal eagles to fight it out in the court or on the in the assembly. But the question really lies is, what is Shiv Sena? So is 45 or 46 or 49 or 50 MLAs, is that the Shiv Sena? You ask the 12 crore Maharashtrians of Maharashtra, the 12 crore people of Maharashtra, what exactly as per them is Shiv Sena, and they will say the Shiv Sainik who toils day and night for the people of their area. The crores and lakhs of Shiv Sainiks who under the leadership of Uddhav Sahab, under the directions and blessings of Bala Sahab, who in their area work for the common man, that is Shiv Sena. And for me as a Shiv Sainik today, what is important is the Shiv Sena.
No, so Mr.
It is
Desai,
unfortunate. It is indeed unfortunate.
I respect your candor. Mr. Desai, I really respect your candor. I really respect your candor, and I think you began on the right note. But I just want to ask you this question since you raised it. You talked about the Shiv Sainik, the toiling Shiv Sainik. Now, the Shiv Sainik toiled for a set of ideals. He didn't just toil for the sake of toiling. You could say the same about Congress party. There are a lot of hard-working members in the Congress party. Sanjay Jha is a hard-working member of the Congress party. I don't think he's going to deny that. He gave his life and soul and blood to the Congress party. But maybe he believes today that the leadership of the party doesn't have an ideology to defend anymore. Maybe it made too many compromises. So I'm asking you, the Shiv Sainik toiled and toiled and toiled only to be let down by its leadership that wasn't listening to him or her and went in for an unnatural alliance, signed a common minimum program which deviated from his ideals. That's why I'm asking you, is that the real cause today? Maybe you need to course correct. Maybe you shouldn't have followed down the path of the politics of convenience. You have seen how that ends up. The BJP with the PDP, you saw that. The BJP with Ajit Pawar, you saw how that turned out. Maybe you should have stuck with the BJP. You had a pre-poll alliance, then you came up with this post-poll alliance. People will say that is the real reason. You can't drift from your ideological moorings. You're doing bad by your Shiv Sainik, Mr. Desai.
Rahul, to respond on this, the Shiv Sainik had toiled for all these elections, including the 2019 elections, was to make sure that there be a chief minister of the Shiv Sena as well. Do you mean to say that the lakhs and lakhs of Shiv Sainik had toiled day in and day out to make the UT win, only to get a Bharatiya Janata Party's chief minister in the state? So why was it wrong for the aspiration of a common Shiv Sainik to have a chief minister of their own party at the seat of Maharashtra? So that is precisely why, if you ask me, that had we worked on ideologies, yes, we still do the same. Did we toil for a principle? Yes, we had, and we still and will be doing it for the same. But at the same time, along with working for this, the aim to work in a political system is to achieve a position, is to win elections, is to make sure that someone from the party is at the helm of the affairs. How is it wrong for a Shiv Sainik to feel or assume or presume or dream yesterday, even today and in the coming years, that someone from the Shiv Sena has to become the chief minister of Maharashtra? And that is exactly what Uddhav Sahab had said. This is a promise that he had made on behalf of lakhs and lakhs of Shiv Sainiks, that there will be a time when there will be a chief minister of the Shiv Sena in the state of Maharashtra.
Okay.
So how does Uddhavji get wrong in this?
Okay, let me ask Mr. Rajagopalan, why is
accomplishing the dreams and aspirations of a common Shiv Sainik?
Okay, why is it wrong? And you heard the question, Mr. Rajagopalan. Why is it wrong to try for chief ministership? Didn't the workers toil to want to see a Shiv Sainik becoming chief minister? What is wrong with that? that. That's also an objective.
Rahul, lakhs and lakhs of Shiv Sainiks were duped by the emergence of Mr. Uddhav Thackeray as a chief minister, because on the very first day there were ruptures. And the entire Shiv Sainiks were surrendered to Sharad Pawar and to Congress. That is the grudge of Mr. Eknath Shinde. And in the intro you said about the national implications. Rahul, I tell you, whatever Mr. Desai representing Shiv Sena has narrated now, each and every Shiv Sainiks are feeling duped, and they look for Eknath Shinde. Eknath Shinde in one shot.
No, that's okay. I'll come to that. But Mr. Rajagopalan, he's asking the basic question.
Rahul,
the basic question is, yes, the Shiv Sainiks have an ideology, but they also want to see a political party, their own political party, assuming office, benefiting from the fruits of office to deliver that ideology. So what is wrong if the Shiv Sainiks have got their dream through Uddhav Thackeray?
Shiv Sainiks had more importance for Uddhav Thackeray and Devendra Fadnavis combined, not Sharad Pawar combined. That is the reason.
Oh, so you're saying that you can't be running for power and compromising your ideology for power.
He compromised for the chief minister.
You could have waited maybe another 5 years, but you were guided by greed for office. That's what you're saying.
That greed, and also in Eknath Shinde's syndrome, a bloodless coup, unlike the Satyagraha of National Herald, my understanding is Eknath Shinde killed two birds in one shot. That is Sharad Pawar's dream of installing his daughter as chief minister, Supriya Sule, and Devendra Fadnavis, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray's son, Aditya Thackeray. So therefore, Eknath Shinde syndrome is a new wave in Maharashtra's.
Okay, let me bring in
3 of them.
Let me bring in Shubhrastha, let me bring in Sanjay Jha, Yogi Gade, and Shantanu Gupta. Shubhrastha, one quick response to what Mr. Desai said. He said, look, everyone wants power. The Shiv Sainik is not some renunciator. He has also wanted power. And one of those aspirations has been delivered by Uddhav Thackeray. Why punish him?
No, nobody is punishing Uddhav Thackeray. It's just a question of competitive aggression. So Uddhav Thackeray gained the crown, and there are people in the Shiv Sena who perhaps feel that they also deserve to win the crown. So it's an internal competition of the Shiv Sena, which unfortunately has come out in the open. Nobody is punishing Uddhav Thackeray. Uddhav Thackeray, the position that Uddhav Thackeray is in today is his own doing. Look, it's very easy, Rahul, to say that they did not compromise on their ideology. Let's not bring the ideology question, because at prima facie I'm saying that there is no ideology when it comes to gaining the throne of power. Yes, you have ideological positions when you are trying to expand your base. Yes, you do believe in certain ideologies and your policies will reflect your ideology. But for all that to happen, you need to gain the seat of power. When Uddhav Thackeray was in power, look at what he did with Maharashtra with respect to so many cases that come to mind. The Hanuman Chalisa controversy happened in Maharashtra. The Palghar Sadhu's lynching case happened in Maharashtra. After the whole Ram Janmabhoomi, the culmination of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, no Shiv Sainik were allowed to go to the Ram temple, and this is what their own MLAs are writing to.
So that's an important point Shubhrastha is making.
On the ideological questions, there have been compromises along the way.
There have been compromises. So while there might be competitive aggression,
right or wrong, I'm just saying.
I know, I get what you're saying. I think Sanjay Jha needs to come in here.
Yes.
Mr. Gade needs to come in here. Shantanu Gupta needs to come in here. Competitive aggression, others feel also, get the crown, no problems. Let's get the crown. Let's also become chief minister. But don't lose yourself in the pursuit of power. You can do both. You can get the crown, but you don't have to sell your ideology down the toilet, Sanjay Jha. That is what is being said. You will perhaps agree with me. You will agree with me because you had a problem with the ISF arrangement that Congress and left got into against ideological moorings in Bengal. You perhaps also will say that, look, we would have had reservations about tying up with the Sena, but we got them to sign on a common minimum program.
Rahul, my short response. Number one, I do believe that actually, let's address the elephant in the room up front. Uddhav Thackeray, when he said that I practiced a different Hindutva from the BJP, I actually need to congratulate him for it. I'll tell you why. I'm a Hindu. But I believe the Bharatiya Janata Party has corrupted my great religion. Is by the way, lynching, murder, violence, hate speeches and bulldozer the manifestation of Hindutva? When the Supreme Court said Hindutva is a way of life, did it mean the kind of vicious religious bigotry that the BJP has practiced? Hats off to Uddhav Thackeray. In fact, I believe the Shiv Sena needs to be congratulated for moderating the aggressive texture that the BJP has brought to Hinduism and to Hindutva, if I can extend that. Which brings me to the second point, that end of day, if you look at the narrative today, it's pretty obvious. You have Mr. Eknath Shinde who says that I'm okay as long as there's a government with the BJP. So look at the preposterous or the absurdity of this proposition by Eknath Shinde, which at some point he will have to address when they do the floor test and they mingle with their Shiv Sena workers. You are saying that an MVA government headed Mr. Rajagopalan
Don't divert that.
Okay, one second. Gentlemen, one second.
And bring in Kangana Ranaut also. Bring in Palgar.
Okay, one second. Let me come in.
What happened to Palgar lynching?
Okay,
you speak about others.
Rajagopalan, let me ask a follow-up question to Sanjay.
Rahul, can I finish my statement?
Yeah, just 1 second. Sanjay,
one minute.
Gentlemen, is misleading because
gentlemen, please,
transparent and civilized, and let's keep it that way.
No, it's a civilized one.
Yeah,
you speak about Palgar.
Please ask the question. Please ask the question after you finish. Okay, 1 second. Let's 1 second. Let me just let everyone take a deep breath. 1 second. Let me just restore some order. Definitely, Sanjay Jha, finish what you're saying, but you singled out the BJP's brand of Hindutva that you disagree with, which is corrosive, but you conveniently skipped over the fact that even Bal Thackeray said that we brought down the Babri Masjid in 17 minutes, and we are proud of doing so. So do you believe that Uddhav Thackeray has also renounced his own father's brand of Hindutva, which you found repulsive? Would you say that?
Yeah, okay, Rahul, let me answer that. I'll answer that, but let me just finish my statement because I don't want to lose my track until I was rudely interrupted by Mr. Rajagopalan. I would request him to kindly don't, kind of corrupt a very healthy discussion. Thank you, sir. So my key point is that, and this is the worry, Rahul, I was disappointed with what Shubhrastha mentioned. As people of India, even we are discussing crude mathematics of a floor test, but to say that morality does not matter, the ends justify the means, to say that Sam Dam Dandbhed politics is okay, to indulge in the whataboutery that had happened in the past of what the BJP is doing is correct. I mean, to my mind, that's an absolutely shocking admission of the kind of debasement of Indian politics and our psychological framework. But let me address that. Who is today running an MLA stock exchange of India? It has been evident not just here, because you have Mr. Eknath Shinde openly saying, I want to make a truck with the BJP.
But,
so he says that
Sanjay
the chief
Jha,
minister need not be a Shiv Sena guy. As a deputy chief minister with the BJP at the helm, we are okay.
Sanjay
You
Jha,
really think this is what the Shiv Sena was fighting for? I mean, this actually is something that will never pass the acid test.
Okay, but
and therefore my last point, Rahul, my last point, then I'm done. That end of day, we saw it earlier in Karnataka, we saw it in Madhya Pradesh, Puducherry, Goa, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh. I'm worried about the future of Indian democracy under Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah. They can win all the elections. For God's sake, don't do this by sleight of hand.
Okay, but that's like the pot calling the kettle black. And I understand that you call that whataboutery.
The elephant in the room is Palgar. The elephant in the room is Kangana Ranaut.
Okay,
Sanjay Jha forgets about it.
Okay, now I just want to come back to Sanjay Jha, and I want to bring in Shubhrastha since her name was mentioned. Shubhrastha, very quick, come back to Sanjay Jha since you were dragged into this. Yes.
Yes, three very quick points, Rahul. Number one, I'm not trying to justify the immorality of not just Indian democracy but parliamentary democracy per se. technically, when you are in a democracy, you have to make certain compromises, and unfortunately, the calculation of crude numbers is just a part of that. You may not agree with it, which means you shouldn't be in politics. And I have a lot of respect for Sanjay ji. He knows that. Personally, I respect him a lot. Sanjay ji, people like you should be in Indian politics, but unfortunately are not. You guys are sidelined, which is why the crude calculation of numbers is real politics, and we'll have to deal with it. Point number one. Point number two, ad nauseum, this entire example of Manipur, Goa, Puducherry, etc. is being flung in the face as if under the 50-60 years of Congress rule, Manipur delivered development to its people. Look, I mean, I'm not trying, again, I'm trying to, what I'm trying to say, Rahul, is let us not get into the means and methods of getting 2 seats of power, because it is all parliamentary, it is all within the framework of the constitution. If it is unconstitutional, people are free to go to the judiciary, knock the doors and get justice. As long as constitutional governments are run, you measure a government's performance through the policies it brings. Look at what Manipur has become today. People did not know which part of Manipur had what. Today Manipur is on the Indian mainstream map, thanks to the BJP government which came to power and delivered so many people-friendly policies. Manipur is the first state in the country to bring anti-lynching laws. If the Congress was so well versed with the politics of the Northeast, it could have delivered the Northeast the way BJP is delivering today. So let us not get into how did BJP come to power. Of course, when you climb the throne of power right from the age of Ramayana till now, people have not played extremely pristine and pure to get 2 seats of power. It's what they do with power is more important.
And also, we are being selective. It's not just that money manifests itself in government formation exercises only after, hung verdicts are thrown up. Viewers, we all know that funding of political parties is perhaps the most non-transparent aspect of Indian politics.
Yes.
We also know that while there are limits to how much you can spend to win an election, those limits are breached in clandestine ways. Nothing is equal. We've had great idealists come in, burn themselves in the cauldron of Indian politics, which is aggressive. And most democracies, this is nothing just to do with India, viewers. Go to America and you will see the conversations around money power in politics. So, Sanjay Jha, let's put that aside. I really wanted to come back to the real questions that we are asking. And I will graduate to, was Uddhav the right choice to lead the Shiv Sena in the very, very beginning? That's the other fundamental question with Mr. Gadde and Shantanu Gupta. But I want to finish with what you were saying. You made some very interesting points, Sanjay Jha, but I feel they were slightly selective. You said that, look, I am glad that the Shiv Sena is making this transition to a more gentrified politics. That's what you're saying. Because you don't agree with the BJP brand of Hindutva. But the original Hindu Hinde Samrat, sir, was Bal Thackeray.
No, fair enough.
So you
I just want to mention one thing.
So you agree with me when you say that Uddhav Thackeray strayed from the Bal Thackeray brand of Hindutva politics, and you're glad that happened.
No, Rahul, I would not use the word strayed. I think, remember one thing, we live in dynamic times, right? This is not the 1966. This is now 2022.
Sure.
Parties evolve. The whole, I think, discourse changes. So, I mean, today the BJP may be making it more regressive, but I think India is also kind of
is your point
evolving
of view.
Somewhere.
The BJP, if the BJP spokesperson was here, he would have said, we work overtime for, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, show me one policy which is militating against any minority, excludes anybody, and the general drill there, what they would say. So that is your perception. But the fact is, and this is the question I want to come back to, which you're evading constantly, are you saying that the Congress and the NCP had a sobering effect on the politics of the Shiv Sena, which is good for it? Is that what you're saying? Answer that question.
Yeah, let me tell you, Rahul, you have lived in Mumbai as well. I can tell you this, and I'm saying so despite being a Congress ideological supporter. I meet democratic, secular liberals in Mumbai city and Pune and different parts of Maharashtra. And you'll be surprised, Rahul, I find many people who are traditional Congress voters who are saying we are very happy with Uddhav Thackeray, with the way he managed the COVID, etc. Please remember the timing. The BMC elections are coming up in just a couple of months. And I believe this entire sudden development has got to do with the fact that the BJP
you haven't still answered my question.
The Shiv Sena may be a front runner.
You still haven't answered my question. You've gone into the BMC polls. Did the Congress and NCP have a gentrifying, sobering effect, welcome sobering effect on the Shiv Sena's politics? Yes or no?
The answer to that is I'm sure the Shiv Sena had its own introspection, but yes, I'm sure this also had a positive impact. Yes, I agree with that.
I want to ask only one question. One question to Sanjay Jha. Eknath Shinde syndrome, how do you read it, Sanjay Jha?
I mean, what is the Eknath Shinde syndrome?
He is bringing back the Hindutva fold. He is bringing back that Hindutva fold to Shiv Sena. That you are forgetting. That is the elephant in the room.
Mr. Rajagopalan. Let me answer that. Let me answer that. The very fact that he's used Hindutva as an excuse to break away is basically playing into the BJP playbook. That's the order he's getting from New Delhi.
Then Uddhav Thackeray played into Sharad Pawar.
Talk about breaking the Shiv Sena.
So I think Sanjay Jha has admitted. He has admitted that yes, one of the effects was that it had a sobering effect on the Shiv Sena, the tie-up with the NCP and the Congress. In other words, the Pawarization of Uddhav Thackeray has happened.
Correct, exactly correct.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. If Mr. Uddhav Thackeray now renounces hardline Hindutva, that's his call. Will that be the unmaking of him? Is the other question that we can ask. But I want to bring in Shantanu Gupta and Yogi Gade. Mr. Gade, now you've heard it. Now you've heard it from the Congress party itself that Uddhav Thackeray, we welcome his transition from being part of a hardline Hindutva party to a more gentrified, genteel and sober, maybe pro-Hindu party or a more broad-based, inclusive party. So आपका तो DNA ही बदल गया. So why are you then worried about what Mr. Shinde has to say or not? You should be glad to see him go. Because Shinde's DNA is no longer the same as Uddhav's DNA. Why are you crying? Say good riddance.
Can I go ahead, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, if you go to see, sir, 2.5 years, all these MLAs who are with Mr. Shinde also, they were all holding positions in the government. They were taking all the benefits of the government, whatever was allocated to them. 2.5 years, they didn't feel this, and now today they are feeling. And the timing of this is also to be questioned, number one. And going on the Hindutva way, so what is Hindutva? Is there a certificate notifying any party is 100% true to Hindutva? As a young leader, I say no party can give certificate to any party on Hindutva or on secularism also. Nor the Congress is saying what they are secular, their secularism also very different. Shiv Sena and BJP also, people say Hindutva, Hindutva. Nobody has been on the Hindutva cards. If you see in Kashmir, BJP has gone with the PDP for 2.5 years, they've come back. BJP has also gone with NCP in 2019. Even that was, where was the Hindutva that time? And if you go to see, sir.
So then what was it about? Development?
Yes.
What was it about? Development?
It is all about, mostly if you go to see, the voters are voting only during elections, watching what is going on.
No, but Mr. Gade, so Uddhav Thackeray decided to go with NCP and Congress to promote development, inclusivity. What exactly was the benefit here? Tell me.
See, every party whichever goes, everybody has a development agenda. So if you go to see, okay, there is development if whichever government comes.
So development was the glue. Development was the glue.
I'm coming to that, sir. I'm coming to that, sir. If you go to see, Shiv Sena and BJP alliance is since 1990 or 1991 to whatever it is.
Yes.
So when I've seen as a young boy, when Shiv Sena and BJP were under the guidance of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji and Balasaheb Thackeray ji, and that time it was very well decided in Maharashtra, during Lok Sabha, BJP will be the elder brother, and during Vidhan Sabha, Shiv Sena will have more seats. Okay. This was the first deal, and it was never touched after once it was finalized. Shiv Sena always had more seats during Vidhan Sabha and Lok Sabha. This thing. So 2014 came. In 2014, Lok Sabha, Shiv Sena didn't even tell BJP.
What's your point? I'm not understanding the point you're making.
Yes,
what was the tie-up about? What were you trying to safeguard?
I'm saying that only, sir. Yes.
Yes.
During when it was under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji and Balasaheb Thackeray ji, everything was very smooth.
Okay.
And it was their era which fought against Congress and NCP and got Shiv Sena and BJP the days they are having it today.
Okay.
So in 2014, during Lok Sabha, everything went smoothly. And then when Vidhan Sabha came, BJP immediately said, we want more seats and we want the Shiv Sena to come below 150 mark. Shiv Sena had something 171 or 173.
So you're basically saying that
Yes,
Sena finished second in 2019 elections. Uddhav ji was unwilling to be a junior
sir.
partner to the BJP. He got
Yes, sir,
so
that's what-
upset that the BJP went ahead. He worried that the Shiv Sena might even be at some point eaten up by the BJP in the next 5 years. So inko chhod do. Let's go to Congress and NCP. Self-preservation, you're saying. Then it was not
Yes,
about development.
Sir. I'm coming to that. Just let me say that. Then in 2014, we saw what happened during Vidhan Sabha elections.
Right,
The
sir.
Shiv Sena didn't agree to reduce seats because
Yeah.
they told this is what is decided during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's
Yes,
time
sir.
and Balasaheb ji Thackeray's time. But then BJP told, okay, we'll fight separately, and they went back first. Okay, they fought separately. Shiv Sena 163, BJP 123. They came back together for power, right? Then again, come 2019, sir. I quote you this in February 2020. Amit Shah.
So
ji
get to the
and-
point. What
Listen,
is the point
I'm
you're
getting to the
making?
point only, sir. I'm getting to the point, sir.
He is
One
coming
minute,
to the
one
point
minute.
of Advani and Modi.
February
and, Amit Shah.
2020. Sir, 1 minute, sir. February 2020, Amit Shah ji and Uddhav Thackeray
see,
ji
he has come
quoted
to the
this.
point.
We are coming back
He is
to the
comparing Vajpayee
alliance.
and Modi.
We are coming to alliance.
Okay, so you
with
don't like
50-50
Modi.
formula. Listen, sir. We are
He
coming
does
to
not
back
like
to
Modi.
50-50 formula. We are coming back to 50-50 formula.
So
for
you
Lok Sabha and
you got
Vidhan Sabha.
backstabbed by Mr. Modi. That's what you're saying.
Yes, somewhere
Okay,
Shiv Sena
so
got
one point
backstabbed.
is, so you've taken 5 minutes to tell us that you got backstabbed by Modi. Fine, that's one point. That was
No,
one
I
of
want
the
to say the
reasons.
difference. How was the alliance during
Okay.
Balasaheb ji Thackeray and
Okay, so Modi is a
Atal
bad
Bihari
man.
Vajpayee times?
Modi
and
was
what
a
is it
bad,
now?
undependable person. Vajpayee was a lovely person. He was actually someone who had the interests of the Shiv Sena at heart. Okay, we've understood that point. So that was one motivation. But that doesn't explain
And second
why.
also, sir.
One second,
Let me finish, sir.
one second,
Sir,
sir.
one minute.
One second, Gade Saab, but that doesn't
This is
explain.
also important, what I want to tell you,
please,
sir.
I've understood the point. Now, second point I want to ask you. The second point, therefore, is that doesn't explain why you would go and clutch the hands of Congress and
Yes,
NCP.
that only I'm answering.
They are certainly not your well-wishers.
Yes, I'm answering that. Sir, so in post 2015, if you go to see many local body elections, BJP has gone on with NCP and other parties to get mayors and whatever
Okay.
seats. Or before that,
So
both the
because
parties were always
the BJP did it, it is okay. Now I
Yes.
want to ask you.
Yes.
Now I want
One
to
minute,
ask you,
listen, sir.
Shantanu
One minute,
Gupta is
listen,
listening
one
to you.
minute, listen. 1 minute, listen, sir. BJP did that. In Kashmir also they went with PDP.
Ji.
And then again, if you go to see in 2019, before
Ji.
the Shiv Sena went with Congress and NCP, it was the BJP and NCP who took oath ceremony also in 2019.
So the BJP whitewashed the NCP and therefore everything is okay.
If you go to see, both have done it. First,
Both
BJP
have done it,
has
so it's okay. So basically, we have
And Shiv
not
Sena
got
also went on
any
to do it.
viewers from Mr. Gade today. He has given us, as Shubhrastha was saying, at the very beginning, number one, the arithmetic. Number two, the cold calculation. He said, Bhaiya, at the end of the day, Sharad Pawar will bring me into power. BJP also did a deal with Pawar Jr., so it's okay. Now I'll hang on to Sharad Pawar. I'll at least become chief minister. Ideology can go down the toilet. Who cares about ideology? At least I'm chief minister. Right? That's what you're saying, Gade Saab?
Sir, I'm not saying that. I'm saying voters vote for one thing, but at the end, the party leaders do differently. All
Party leader
leaders
then
do
served
differently.
himself. Party leader served himself, forgot the
Yes, all parties,
poor
yes.
Shiv Sainik. So Shinde is now upset. Now viewers, just listen to what I have to say. These are very, very important examples. Shiv Sena had slammed Congress for corruption over allegations against P. Chidambaram in 2016. They said that P. Chidambaram was the fount of all corruption. This is 2016, viewers. Good governance is about clean governance. So if you are going to go to the same Congress that has a Chidambaram in its mix, that you yourself said was not right, then there is a problem there. You've compromised one. Then Shiv Sena had attacked the NCP over alleged involvement in irrigation scam. But they had no problem with the alleged face of the irrigation scam. Pawar Jr., Ajit Pawar, amongst them. No problems with that. So again, a compromise on corruption. These are development issues. I'm not talking about ideology here, not about Hindutva. So you compromised Hindutva, which was your core. After that, you began to make compromises on governance issues. Then Uddhav Thackeray in 2014 had vowed to expose Ajit Pawar, and Prithviraj Chavan voted to power. He is in power today. He's the chief minister. Has he exposed Pawar, Ajit Pawar and Prithviraj Chavan? No, he has not. So he's compromised also on being honest about accountability, justice. Third compromise. Then viewers, most importantly, his own father Bal Thackeray had said, quote unquote, that Sharad Pawar was a scoundrel. He said this. So you forgot even Sharad Pawar ji because of your distaste for Modi. So Modi was the issue, Shantanu Gupta. It is about opposing Modi. We can go and cling on to anyone. It's about Modi. That's what it's come down to after all this 20 minutes of conversation.
Rahul, I heard about that lakhs of Sainiks toiled in the 2019 election. But these lakhs of Shiv Sainiks were holding around with Uddhav Thackeray Modi's poster. Show me a poster by Shiv Sena in 2019 election when Narendra Modi was not there. Right? And see, there were defections in Shiv Sena before. 1991, their stalwart Chhagan Bhujbal came out. In 2005, Narayan Rane came out with 10 MLAs. Raj Thackeray, the family stalwart, came out. But all those were like individual political ambitions or the equations with the Shiv Sena leadership. But this is the first time when Eknath Shinde and 40 plus MLAs are coming out. Their problem is that Uddhav Thackeray have changed the DNA, the USP of Shiv Sena. Tomorrow, if they will go to polls, on what basis will they ask for votes? If people want to vote for a Hindu party, for a party based on development, they will vote for BJP. If they want to vote for someone else, they will vote for NCP and Congress. Why will they vote for Shiv Sena? And I think this is a very logical question that Eknath Shinde and the bunch of people are asking, that our politics, our individual politics, the politics of Shiv Sena anyway has gone for a toss. Taking what will they go to the people? And anyway, as you said, in governance wise, there was a huge compromise. This last 2.5 years is a formula how a government should not be run. Like your police commissioner is absconding, your 2 ministers are arrested, you are arresting a famous journalist, you are breaking a house of a Bollywood actress, you can't chant Hanuman Chalisa. If Balasaheb Thackeray would have been alive, I don't know what will be his plight seeing all of this. This is the Shiv Sena which he made in last 40 years. This is the condition. So I think I'm just wondering how this, and hats off to Sharad Pawar, that how this coalition lasted even for 2.5 years. This is like the most contradictory coalition ever. So I think Eknath Shinde, realized a little too late, but let's see what happens in coming days.
Let me go across to Sanjay Jha. Sanjay Jha, the fundamental question then we should ask, the last question that I wanted to ask. See, we've asked, did Uddhav make compromises for CM-ship? We've asked, did Uddhav drift too far from saffron ideology? The third question is Uddhav today more acceptable to Pawar, but not his party? Was he even the right choice to lead the Shiv Sena? Let's take this conversation forward rather than going back. Let's ask that question. Was Uddhav the right choice to lead this party? Is he more acceptable to Pawar and Gandhis than to his own partymen?
Well, let me tell you that end of day, Mr. Thackeray has gone public and said that Mr. Pawar said that you will be the best candidate to lead the coalition forward. And obviously his party backed that wonderful idea. But here is a point that you cannot ignore. And I'm telling you, please remember this, that the Shiv Sena under Uddhav Thackeray was always aware that the BJP was growing on their base. The BJP became formidable on Maharashtra, riding on their shoulders. And you mentioned about what the Shiv Sena said about NCP and Congress. You know what they called Narendra Modi in the BMC election? I was living in Mumbai at that point of time. They called Narendra Modi a Gaddar. In fact, the Shiv Sena talked about Mr. Modi as a snake who grew the BJP and then was consuming the Shiv Sena. It's all there in the public domain. Shiv Sena has been critical of the BJP because they knew that what the BJP has done to the JDU in Bihar. You look at it, Bihar will be your next big story.
So
Mr. Nitish Kumar is today a second player in Bihar because the
that
BJP
it is all about Modi phobia. Even Uddhav's decision. It's about Modi. It's a fact, he says. It's about Modi phobia, Nitin Desai, about Modi phobia.
It's a fact that the BJP has exploited the Shiv Sena.
Okay, so it's a fact today that the reason you're with Pawar, the reason that you're with the Gandhis, the reason that you're with the Yadavs, the Mulayam Singh Yadavs as part of your coalition is because of Modi phobia, Mr. Desai. That's what it is. Gade Saab has said so. Sanjay Jha is saying so. These are all your allies and friends and party men.
Sir, I have not said that. I have not said that.
Well, you admit it, sir. I mean, or kya?
No, I have not said it's Modi phobia. I just said
you said
the alliance was
nice
very
person.
different during. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say Modi is not a nice person. I didn't say that. And I just told.
So you're not. You're saying Modi is not a dependable person, not as dependable as Vajpayee, right?
That's I just wanted to point out the difference between what the alliance was during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time and what is during this
Modi
time.
is not as dependable as Vajpayee, right? So at the end of the day, net,
it is different.
It is about it is different. It is different. He's not somebody you want to work with. Fair enough. You want to work with a Vajpayee type. So Sharad Pawar is a Vajpayee type chap for you.
No,
okay,
sir,
that's fine. Let me. That's fine. You have your preferences. It's okay. It's fine, sir. Don't feel worried. It's about the fear of the BJP subsuming the Shiv Sena, the fear of an aggressive BJP under an aggressive Prime Minister / 24/7 politician like Narendra Modi that has led to all of this. That is basically what it is, Mr. Desai.
Mr. Uddhav ji has very candidly accepted that it was on the instance and pursuance of Pawar Sahab that he decided to become the Chief Minister. It is not new to Maharashtra that no Thackeray would have ever want to sit on such a position of governance. But because it was an alliance, because it was a tricky alliance, because it was not an easy alliance, because it was not a natural alliance, that they decided that Uddhav ji should take this step, and he agreed to take that bitter pill. Rahul, primarily let us accept, and Maharashtra will vouch for that, that in the last 2.5 years of governance, let us all not forget that Maharashtra primarily was engulfed by COVID, by natural calamities, and in such a situation in all these 2.5 years, Uddhav ji has emerged one of the best chief ministers in the country, and this is for the records to prove. Now Rahul, you mentioned a point. You mentioned a point whereby you said that all this that the Sena has been talking against the NCP or Chidambaram Sahab or Ajit Pawar Sahab, and today the compulsions of politics had made them sit with them. Rahul, there are compulsions of politics, and if I just have to give you a simple example, Rahul, the members, the rebel members, let us all not forget that there are people who are facing inquiries today by the central agencies and are the members of the rebel team. I need not name any of those. They were or they are still Shiv Sainiks. They are now under the scrutiny or under the eye of the central agencies. Does BJP have that courage to come up and tell Eknath Shinde sahab that you, in case if you want to join hands with us, make sure that these people are out of the system. They go back to the original Shiv Sena. No, they will not dare to say that. So Rahul, politics brings along with it certain compulsions, certain positions which a party has to take. Now the interest, now the reason why the Shiv Sena decided to go with Congress and NCP, which were not their natural allies, Rahul, we all know that it was solely the reason was they felt, and Uddhav ji claimed, and every Shiv Sainik of Maharashtra believes that Uddhav ji was telling nothing else but the fact that there was a compromise of 50-50% partnership in responsibility and power. In responsibility and power, which includes the position of the chief ministership.
Mr. Desai,
when that was denied,
Mr. Desai,
it wasn't that
Mr. Desai, you have been
Shiv
saying
Sena
that
has willingly
why should
gone.
Sanjay Raut
It was
say that
Shiv
we will
Sena
go back
was
to
pushed.
BJP?
It was Shiv Sena was Mr.
Why should you say
Rajagopalan,
that?
please, for
Why
a
you are
minute,
saying
please have
that?
that decency to hear.
Why
Please
you-
have that
I heard
decency
you
to hear,
longer time.
gentlemen.
Okay.
We have
time. We have
something
time.
against the BJP, a fact is brought out. I don't know the reason for you to react.
Okay.
Now that was the
Rahul, give me
reason
1
why
minute.
I will.
natural or unnatural alliance came into existence.
Okay.
But let me tell you,
So you're
it came
saying-
on the existence
So you're
of
saying,
a
no,
common
Mr.
minimum
Desai, you're
compact.
saying several push factors.
I will, Rahul, just one last minute. Rahul, just one last minute. Rahul, just one last statement. We have been accused of moving away from Hinduism only because we have aligned with the Congress and the NCP. Rahul, let me tell you, Bala Sahab was not against any religion. Bala Sahab was not against minorities. He was against appeasement of minorities.
Okay, fair enough.
This common minimum program,
And of course, the
mentions nothing
NCP
about
and Congress
appeasement
have
of
never
any
appeased
minority.
minorities
And
ever.
that is the reason why this
Okay.
was a very healthy
Okay,
and
healthy.
holy
Look,
mutual
sir.
relationship and coalition.
I have, as I
And
said,
there
I
is
said I
no way
respected your
of
candor.
Any individual would feel
Okay.
that Shiv Sena
Desai
can
Saab.
ever drift away from Hindutva.
Okay, Desai Saab, see, I began by saying that I respect your candor, and I think you are an honest person, and you have been very honest about this. Very honest. That look, at the end of the day, you have to make compromises for the greater good, or the way you define the greater good, and you're working towards that objective, nothing wrong. But to suggest that, you see, Bal Thackeray, which is true, was against appeasement politics, and somehow the NCP and Congress have never played it, or are the exemplar of non-appeasement politics, would also be to stretch the credulity. But I think you had a very basic question. The question that you are asking, Mr. Rajagopalan, I think you blurted it out, was that then why are you saying, why is Sanjay Raut saying,
Go back to BJP.
we will go back, we will end our
Mr. Desai is
relationship?
contradicting himself.
Well,
that is what I want to.
that is the whole problem.
No, apart from that,
compromising.
One second. Why should Sanjay Raut say that we will go back to
Okay.
BJP? Second thing, Modi phobia is because Gaur Parivar Vaad.
Okay, good.
That is the reason
Okay, well-
why Shiv Sena is against Modi.
Well, viewers, whether it is cold electoral calculations that have led to the compromise, what we've established in the last 40 minutes is that there was a compromise. That at some level, Uddhav Thackeray did sell out on certain principles. Now, history will judge. The people will judge whether he did it for the right reasons or whether he has done it for the wrong ones. We leave it at this.